Hello and welcome to this week's Jump discussion. This week we're talking about why client retention and client acquisition is the key to growth in a hard market. First of all, I've got to apologise for some reason my camera's packed working, so I am the square, the dark square, and obviously you can see Paul and Dave quite well. As always, we're going to start with some stats. So according to SEM Rush, about 44% of businesses focus on customer acquisition, but only 18% put forth a much needed effort to retain their existing customers. Businesses can increase customer retention by obviously developing top-notch customer service. 89% of companies have reported that delivering excellent customer service plays a major role in their customer retention, and the probability of selling products to services to existing customers is around 60-70%, but the probability of selling to new customers is around 5 to 20% success rate. 74% of millennials will immediately switch off or switch to a different retailer if they receive a poor customer service. And we've got to think in less than 5 years, that will be the majority of the workforce and your client base. Existing customers are 50% more likely to try new products and spend 31% more when compared to new customers. And 30 to 50% of sales go to the vendor that actually responds first to them. 80% of sales require 5 follow-ups after meetings, and 44% of sales rep give up after one. In a typical firm of 100 employees, let's think about this. In a typical firm of 100 employees, on average, 7 people are involved in the buying decision. So if we boil that down a little bit, then it'd be interesting to see what that looks like for smaller companies. Salespeople who actively seek out and exploit referrals earn 4 to 5 times more than those that don't. And 91% of customers said they would give referrals, but only 11% of the salespeople ask for them. And only 13% of customers believe that salespeople actually understand their needs. So today we're going to find out why are we listening to the market, what we're getting from the market. The last says to me that it's really important that we listen to what customers need and customers understand, because they're saying that only 30% of their customers believe they do. So are we simply compounding our transactional relationship by not developing things further? So I said Dave and Paul are with us today. So let's kick off with our first question. So welcome, gents. So the question is, to start off, how often should a recruitment leader be reviewing their client base to establish their client acquisition and client retention strategies?
I mean, surely the answer to this is constantly. The one thing that's true in any organization, whether it's in the recruitment industry or any other industry anyone cares to think about, is that we know for an absolute certainty that nothing lasts forever. Business, we like to think, will always remain with us. Certain clients will always work with us. But the reality, of course, is that at some point, things change. And if any of the people listening today take a look at their client base from 5 years ago or back further compared to today, they'll find quite a significant difference. This isn't always, of course, to do with the fact that we've performed poorly. Often would like to think that's very rare, but it has an awful lot to do with things beyond our control. So the issue of constantly reviewing clients, who's working with us, and whether we are in fact getting the majority of the business that we could get, i.e. through cross-selling and upselling, is a constant conversation. And perhaps a bit later on, we should start talking about how we examine our client base, how we determine where we can get the best opportunities to increase our business, and which businesses we should potentially divest from our client base. But we can talk about that a bit later, but it is certainly a daily, if not worst case, weekly conversation about the state of the nation relative to our client base, what we're getting from them, what we need to do to retain them, and how we're going to develop further business opportunities from them.
Yeah, I think, Paul, absolutely right. I think constantly, frequently, at a minimum, I think in your weekly one-to-ones with your sales consultants or your sales director or your sales manager, you should be reviewing your clients. I think one of the challenges going into next year, which will be, by all accounts, a better year than this year has been for many recruitment companies, is that we are dealing with too many clients. We are trying to deliver the same sort of service to too many clients. We don't get paid enough by some of them, but we still trade with them. And in order to understand which are the right ones, and which, shall we say, are the less right ones as opposed to the wrong ones, which are the right ones and which are the less right ones, you've got to be able to have those conversations with your consultant regularly and with your client. Howard, who is, I think, standing behind a blackout curtain, nothing to do with the camera. I think Howard made the point of 89% of people get better customer service when they're talking regularly with their clients. Well, if we're not talking regularly with our clients, how do we know whether they're the right ones for us, let alone whether we're the right company for them?
I think the question is, it's not about establishing client acquisition and client retention. I think, to me, it's about, we don't have a deep enough relationship with our clients because we don't actually spend time talking to our clients or listening to our clients about what they actually want and what they actually need. We're too busy thinking about, what we can supply to them rather than, what we could be doing for them. And that is on twofold. We're always thinking about what happens today. We're not thinking about what happens in the future. And so I think we've got to establish better relationships with our clients. And therefore, it's not, how often, it's daily. And we should be thinking about daily interaction with our major clients, what's going on with that and how that looks like. And we should have reasons to call. So that's maybe it. Okay. And apparently people are saying that they can't hear me either now. So
I can hear you, Howard. It's just a bit faint, shall we say. I can hear you. We're kind of leaning into the screen just to listen to you.
Right, okay. Let me just try turn things up then and see if that works. Okay.
I can't hear Howard. Not a bad thing, maybe, says Andy.
Yeah. And so is Deborah. I love my clients. I love them dear.
Where with you, Andy?
Yeah. Wait for that double invoice to come out.
That's better.
Yeah, there we go. I don't know what I've done, but I've touched something. Something's happened with my system today completely.
You got to do better than a couple of tin cans and a piece of string, Howard. And we've moved into the 21st century now.
I've taken over Dave Pye's view on technology. Just use the least technology that you can. So I think it is about having more often. You sound worse than me last week. Deborah couldn't speak last week for everybody who's wondering what that sounds like. She couldn't speak. She rang me to tell me that she couldn't speak and I couldn't hear a word she said. I think we've just got to be more honest with our clients, and I think we've got to have deeper conversations. It's not just about recruitment. It's about a whole lot of other things from there. So what strategies then do you employ to ensure client satisfaction and long-term partnership?
This is about the point you've just made, which is go and see clients regularly. Obviously, not just you as the owner or the leader of the business, but your people. And I always say this. I was coaching people yesterday. There should never be more than 3 months between a client meeting, and I would suggest that even that is pushing it. If you've waited longer than a 3-month period without getting in front of a client, you've completely lost touch with what's occurring in their business. We live in a very dynamic environment. Things change incredibly quickly. We all know that. There's never been such a rate of change as the rate of change that we now experience in modern life, and that's very true in business. And if you wait longer than 13 weeks before getting back in front of your clients to have a review conversation, you have absolutely lost touch with what's occurring. You've no idea how the business is faring. You don't know who's gone, who's arrived, what contracts they've won, they've lost, and so on and so on. And you certainly don't understand their perception of your service and how you're performing. It's a very simple point here. And I always say to people, never leave a client meeting without arranging your next meeting. Because when you do that face to face, they always say yes. The hardest thing is getting the first client meeting. Of course, we know that. It's never easy. But once you've established that, once you've got your meeting, at the point at which you say goodbye, you arrange your next meeting. At that point, you've now got the momentum. So I think the answer to this question is very straightforward. If you want to know what is occurring, if you want to know what strategies to employ to ensure client satisfaction and long-term partnerships, go see your clients. But importantly, when you're in front of your clients, also establish the organization chart. Who else in that business are people you need to meet? Because we often talk about we work with so-and-so company. But in reality, oh, hello, Howard suddenly emerged from the dark here. We now have blazing light, bright light.
Blazing light, I know.
So take your thumb off the lens. It might help. I would say go and see not only the people you know, but make sure that you use the people you know to get them to introduce other people within the organization, understand the organization chart. We talk about working with a business, but the reality is we establish relationships with human beings. And if you only have a relationship with one other person, with one person in an organization, you cannot say that you own that client. You cannot say you can retain that client. It's only when we network within an organization and we have multiple contacts within an organization that you can start to feel slightly safe. With one contact only, no matter how good your relationship is, you're always vulnerable.
I think also directly, as owners of businesses, and I know this when I started the business that grew, I found myself really enjoying client meetings, but doing less and less of them as more and more people joined the business. And that was a mistake, because actually I had the experience to know to ask the questions, and also because the business had been started by me and somebody else, we knew the clients quite well. And we knew them better than anybody else. Now, the new ones that were then brought on by the staff that we hired and grew, we kind of let them get on with it. We thought we provided good training, good education, so we were just relying on them. What we forgot was actually we needed to be in there as well to do what you were saying about sanity check, how we're doing, how we're performing. And we kind of forgot that as we grew. So if there's any tips on the mistakes I've made in the past, it's try to stay close to as many of the clients that you can. The second thing I would say is in some of the reward, whether that's your sales directors, sales managers, or your consultants, if you bonus them on certain aspects of your business, bonus them on client satisfaction. We all know that we should all be giving good client service, and we all know we should have happy clients. We know that. But I think sometimes when you have that as part of a reward, it then forces you to measure client satisfaction, and then there's an element of reward. And I think that sometimes helps. And that can go all the way down to the desk. It happens in other industries, not very often in recruitment.
So I don't know about client satisfaction, but camera satisfaction isn't very good at the moment. But we'll do something about. I'm trying to do something about that.
Well, we have a nice picture of you now.
But
yeah, you're not moving much, eh?
I know I'm very sedentary in my old age. I think it's the strategy that I think that most recruiters miss, and I think what strategies to employ is we don't listen enough. We don't actually take time to listen to our client base and truly understand their needs. We're great at hearing what they want today, and I think we apply that to the task in hand. What we're actually poor at is actually asking the right questions. I don't think you need to know the answers, but I think you need to have a better set of questions to ask. And it's that fear of not knowing the answers in the reason why we probably don't ask the clients more questions, when I think what we should be actually doing is listening to what they have to say, so then we can ask better questions, not listening to just ask the next question that you want to ask, because by listening to what they're actually saying, then it might take you in a completely different direction, and you might have a far deeper conversation with your client. So to me, I think it's far more important to be asking the right questions, not just asking a set number of questions that we normally ask as a recruiter. And I think that's the big difference where you start to develop a true relationship with your client, is when you're actually listening to what they're saying you're reacting to what they're saying, not reacting to what you can do, because you might have to do something different or something more when you're listening to what they're saying. And therefore, we fear that because sometimes we don't know what to give or what service we should be supplying to them based on their questions rather than exploring that. So I think, to me, then that's the answer to that strategy question would be to have a better listening skills and have more questions to ask. So here's a comment there. Can you share examples of strategies then that you've introduced to either a business that you've either run or you've been mentoring when it comes to acquisition and retention of clients?
Yeah, I mean, I think firstly, I mean, a common exercise that we use a lot with clients is the Boston Matrix. We don't have a slide that we can show today, but we've talked about it in the past, and that's really where you segment your client base into 4 quadrants. It's rising stars, companies that you've worked with, getting to know, who you establish are potentially going to become very big players in due course. So, and they may be pretty small at the moment, but at some point in the future, you have a deep feeling that it can become very important and could offer a tremendous opportunity for you. So these are companies that you stay tight to. You give them the red carpet treatment, even though presently you're not earning an awful lot with them. Is your view is you will do in due course. Question marks are companies, and this is that you deal with at the moment, very warm, sometimes pretty hot companies. These are companies that do business with you, but there are gaps in your knowledge about them. You don't know as much about them as you should do, back to Howard's point about asking questions. So there's an awful lot of information that's missing, gaps in your knowledge. These are the people where probably you have the best chance of developing new business, but you certainly need to go and see them to start asking a whole lot of questions. Then the other 2 quadrants are dogs. These, by definition, are companies that you've reached a conclusion are companies you no longer wish to work with. They don't pay you on time. They're not respectful towards you or even their own. They push you too hard on margin. They don't answer your emails. They don't respond to the CVs you send, etc., and then make a call that you no longer wish to work with them. But they also become a ground for you in terms of search and selection. You bring their people out and you place them somewhere else. And the 4th area would be cash cows. These are companies you're doing very well with, but you know, because you have spoken to them and you recognize this is not a revenue stream that's going to carry on forever and a day. So great, you milk them for a period of time. You get the best opportunity to make money from them, but you know you have to keep moving your business development because at some point fairly soon, they're going to tail away. You don't want to be left stranded. So Boston Matrix is a terrific exercise. I've got others, but I'm going to run out of time, so I'll pass it to Dave.
Yeah, the Boston Matrix is an excellent one. That's for all the clients that say you may have dealt with over the past 3 years. You can do that as an exercise. And just quickly, if you want to do an exercise on the clients that you're trading with right now, just go through and look at all of the requirements you've had. How many of them have been filled internally? What's the average length of time taken to fill the requirement or to get a response from CVs? And how many of the clients that you're dealing with have referred you internally, referred your service or your company internally? If you could just answer those 3 questions for the, say, 15, 20, 40 clients, however many you're dealing with now, that will help you to decide, actually, we're getting most bang for our buck from X, Y, Z. I mean, this is not rocket science. We all know it. But sometimes you kind of forget. The internal one is really important, because 25% of all vacancies are filled internally. And if you're not working on a retained basis, it means if you're working on 100 requirements at any one time, 25 of them are going to go internal. And that trend is going to continue as we go into next year, as people try to hold on to their people. So for 1 of every 4 you're working on may just be filled internally. So have a look, do that little bit of analysis and a bit more in depth. Clearly, what Paul said about the Boston Matrix is first class.
I think I looked at it in a very simple way. I looked at it at a new business, and then once you acquired the new business, and to me, new business was very simple. It was about creating the habit of doing new business on a consistent basis. So daily, consistently doing new business. And then it was doing the basics, what you need to do to generate that new business. So lead gen, referencing warm-up campaigns before you start. Once you've called them, having a follow-up strategy. So what do you do after the call? What do you do next? And I was a firm believer. I remember as a young recruiter reading the 7 No's to Yes book. And it just got me understanding that, it wasn't about making the same call 6 or 7 times. It was about making 6 or 7 different calls before the client started to say yes. So it was having that interaction with the client constantly that was a different interaction that helped you work. And once I got that, my job then was about retaining and establishing the focus of my client. So what was their staffing levels? What was their attrition levels? What was their recruitment plan for the next 12 months? What roles did they struggle with? What were their view, or what did they view as success from a recruitment point of view? And once I started to understand that, then the big question came: how much are they spending on recruitment, and who else in the business should I be speaking to? So I started to speak to people across the business, up the chain, and down the chain. I started to look at anybody that could prevent me. And that then linked very much into what Paul was talking about there, is then quarterly I'd go through my client base and do the Boston Matrix exercise on which clients were cash cows, rising stars, which we knew nothing about whatsoever, the question marks, and which were dogs. And quite often, certain cash cows might suddenly become dogs. Sometimes you had to re-educate the dog and they become a rising star, etc. But it was having that in-depth knowledge of the client that enabled me to do that. But also then when I started to work with my teams, enabled them to do that with the team. So it was all about having the right information and then reacting on the right information, and then being the person that they are, that comment, I can't remember what the actual stat was about clients. I'll find it in a minute, that they go to first. 30 to 50% of sales go to the vendor that responds first. So if you're only calling once a month, okay, how many times does the vendor actually have an opportunity that you're missing out on because you weren't calling them? So to me, it was about the volume, but making sure each calls were up there. So once we got that, the question then would actually come: how do you measure the success of your client sort of centric approach, whether it be approach for new business or approach for retention?
I mean, again, I think this is all about regular touch points. I mean, there are many ways to establish the success of your client-centric approach. I mean, if you're looking at the end result, that's going to show up in your escalating revenues. If you want to know, are we being successful? Are clients reacting well to us? Ultimately, that's going to be very evident in the amount of money that you're generating, turning over, and profit. So that clearly comes from that. But I would suggest that it's obviously much deeper than that. This does come back to the various ways in which you connect with clients. Now, one of the things that I think we're not terribly good at in our industry is we'll often sit in rooms talking to each other about how do we improve the service we provide to clients, what do we do better, what's working, what isn't working, and so on. But it's very rare, in my experience, that those same conversations happen with clients directly or in a group with clients. I mean, we must be one of the only industries where we believe that we have the capacity to solve our issues and develop better service by talking to each other. Whereas it seems to me that most other industries go out and speak directly to their clients through a whole range of ways, through questionnaires, surveys, face-to-face conversations, trying to get quantitative and qualitative research done, data established, and so forth. I always feel when it comes to making big decisions about directional change for businesses, our businesses, that we do miss this point, that we're not engaging as tightly with our client base, or indeed our candidates, as we should be. After all, they're our customers. If we're performing well, I'm sure they'll tell us if we ask them. And if we ask them where we can improve, I'm sure they'll tell us that, but even quicker than they tell us what we're doing well. I do feel we're poor as an industry. I'm not pointing fingers anywhere specifically, but as an industry, we're not great at going out and talking to the people that buy our services, whether they're clients or candidates, to the extent we should be. And also, I would add, I think we need to be very clear about what our competitors are doing. We think we know what they're doing, but we don't really. And again, I think, as an industry, we're not great at that. If you look at supermarkets, for example, they're very aware of what each of their competitors are doing on a literally moment by moment basis, which is why we see pricing changes and so on and so forth. Again, although I wouldn't say we should be fixated on our competitors, we should be focused more on our own performance. Again, I still think that that level of intelligence that we need to establish whether we are outperforming them or performing with them is extremely important. All of these things go into that melting pot, combined with consistent client meetings that will help us to establish what we need to do to be providing top-notch service to our customers. But sitting in a room talking to each other is not going to give you that information. It's not going to help you steer your ship accurately and in the right direction.
Yeah, I think if you're looking for a specific measurement, two obvious ones for me. One is client referrals. How many clients are saying good things about you? You may have to ask for them, and that's absolutely fine. But if you can demonstrate that you're dealing with, for example, 15 clients and 12 of them are happy to fill out a referral sheet or are happy to refer you internally or to another part of the business, you're dealing with Howdens in Northampton, but you want to deal with Howdens in Cardiff, for example. That's one way of measuring. And if you actually seek those referrals and seek that way of engaging with your client, you have to have a conversation with them for them to produce that. And the second measurement is staff retention. Your people tend to stay with you longer if they're happier with the culture and the environment in which they work, but also the work that they do is valued by both you as the employer and the clients that you serve. So if those two measurements are high or better or growing, then for me, they're good measurements of success about client relationships and client service.
So I think when you look at clients come in cycles. Some clients recruit constantly, but most clients recruit in cycles. So that monthly, quarterly, half yearly, annual retention levels become really important. So which clients bought from you last month, last quarter, last half year, last year, and start to understand what their buying cycles are. So when you can start to measure success, you measure the ones that keep coming back to you over and over again, and therefore your client retention is a stat that I would be looking at. I'd also look at the clients that you are working with, which clients look like those clients, and as we talked about, which clients would then you get a referral from. So it's not just about having clients that have positions for you to fill. It's also understanding when they haven't got positions to fill, what we're doing with them, and will they welcome calls? Will they talk to you when they are not recruiting? Hence, you can then help build your retention strategy with them. So it's about targeting, I think, your business on bringing new clients in, and then also targeting them on retention. If we just target on billings, then billings can mask when clients start to fall off, because sometimes the billings continue for a certain period of time, and then all of a sudden the client's disappeared. And because we've had residual billing going on for a period of time, we've not noticed that client's dropped away, and that becomes a problem. So I think if we think about what we should be thinking about is targeting people on new business development every month, and targeting people on retention. So which clients are constantly buying and which clients have come back. So which lapsed clients have come back because you've brought them back. And therefore you start to look at which clients that you need, i.e. what's the gap between the business that you're being able to generate now and what you need to do to hit target. So have you got to do more retention strategies? Have you got to do more new business? You were saying, Paul, then it was a very competitive landscape.
Yeah.
So in that competitive recruitment marketplace that we're in, how do you differentiate your agency then to ensure clients see you as a trusted partner rather than just a service provider?
I mean, I think the key word you've used, Howard, is trusted, and we often talk about trusted advisor positioning. The thing about trust, we all know that trust is built up over a period of time. You go and see a client for the first time, and what you've managed to do is at least break that initial barrier. You know, you've got sort of physical contact. You're sitting in front of somebody, hopefully for at least an hour, getting to know that human being you're talking to, understanding where they've come from, what their role is, where they see themselves going, and clearly getting a better understanding of the organization. And then hopefully getting to a point where you're beginning to express what you can do, what you can do to help and support them. I always say that client meetings start from a very simple perspective: me boring, you interesting. We don't go there to talk about ourselves. We go there to open our mouths and listen to the individual we're speaking to. And I think trust takes time. You're not going to achieve that on the first meeting. If you look at the standard trusted advisor triangle diagram, we all sit initially in that recruitment pack. That contingent pack at the base of the pyramid is where we are. We are one of many agencies that the client goes to, and we are not differentiated from those other agencies. They view us as the same, which is why they tell us what prices we should charge, because they feel that our service levels are identical. We have no relationship with them. We are just ultimately CV chuckers. The only way to remove yourself from that positioning is to get a client meeting. And as I said earlier, then to get another client meeting and keep going. Now, over a period of time, you start to remove yourself, differentiate yourself from the rest of the recruitment pack, ultimately to a position where you become proactive with the client rather than reactive, which is where you sit at the base of the pyramid, waiting for vacancies, temp and contract bookings to come in your direction, and you reacting to that. We want to move into a proactive position where we're becoming recruitment partners to that client. We become a trusted advisor. But the point here, and this is something most recruitment people find very difficult to grasp, is that it takes a long time to get to that positioning, to become that trusted advisor. And we are a business that seems to live in the now. We live for today. We live for this week's figures, this month's figures. So talking about strategies that will impact us positively in 12 months, 2 years, 3 years, and working on those strategies is something that most people in recruitment find very difficult to comprehend. And I understand that. I've been in the industry nearly 50 years, so I do understand that. But if you ever want to move away from the pack and differentiate yourself, you have to have long-term strategies. And developing that trusted advisor positioning takes time. It's not an overnight job.
Yeah, and a little exercise you could do with your team, even if it's a half an hour or an hour. Look at what you consider to be your A-list clients, your top clients, where you would consider yourself to be a trusted advisor. That may only be 3 or 4. But look at that community of clients. Ask yourself, you think you're their trusted advisor. Ask yourself, do you think they think that as well? And then look at your next batch of clients and work out what is the difference between the service we give to the first lot and the service we give to the second lot. And how can we improve that? Is there an opportunity to improve that to get to trusted advisor status? And, you know, sometimes it's okay for the answer to be no, because you just need to know where you are on that journey with the clients. You're never going to be a trusted advisor to 100 clients, but if you're only a trusted advisor to 4 or 5, aim for 10. If you're a trusted advisor for 3, aim for 6, and work out what it is between the ones that could be and the ones that are, and look at how you can change that. Is it quality of service? Is it the products you're servicing? Is it the person dealing with them on the account? Is it the way they pay? Is it the contact with finance or contact across the whole board? You can do a very, very simple exercise, and it's really good for the team as well to get them involved. And some of it will be opinion, and opinion's okay, because then you can have a debate and work out what to do.
So I think then that all boils down to a simple thing, is that we don't really understand our service levels, and we never really measure our service levels. So you must gain from your client feedback what your service levels should be or should look like, and then we should be starting to add new services into that mix and start to increase the level of services that we give. And I think once recruiters, once they open a client, I think they tend to get a little bit complacent, or dare I say lazy. You know, if you're on a PSL, say of 1 of 4, more often than not, you're quite happy to settle for that. But if we actually start to measure our engagement with our client and how we can become better, then surely we should then have strategies to take that client from being one of four to take that client to be one of one. But we're not trying to do that. We're not trying to outperform, because as Paul said, we probably don't know what our competitors are actually doing, even though we're in a competitive situation. So, I think we've got to start to think about our present services, what's happening, and what our future services could do. And then why aren't we consistently upping our game and trying to take more market share from our competitors? And I think that's all about understanding the service levels that we give to our clients and give to our candidates to a certain degree to get us to that point. So how do you then, Paul and Dave, ensure services, or how do you ensure your services then receive, I'll slightly change that question, how do you ensure your services receive unsolicited feedback or testimonials from clients that highlight your agency's impact on their business?
I think the word unsolicited is a difficult one because it tends to be, if you don't ask for testimonials and referrals and so forth, they tend not to come in your direction. I think Dave's probably going to say that one of the ways in which you should be looking at how you receive consistent feedback from clients is potentially through bonus plans, commission plans. I know that when you really focus on outstanding customer service, we should consider that bonus plans dictate the behavior of the people that work with you. So one way of perhaps engaging your people to ensure that clients consistently respond with feedback, whether that's positive or otherwise, is to look at their bonus plans. I've certainly worked with organizations, still do, that provide additional bonus on a quarterly basis. As an example, for the testimonials or references received from clients, people have to attend quarterly reviews, normal, and part of that review process is to look at X number of testimonials or references received from clients and candidates, which will dictate whether they receive a certain level of additional bonus. Once you get people to focus on these things, recognizing that great customer service will benefit them in all sorts of ways, then you can perhaps get more listed is a difficult one. Obviously, if a client or a candidate sends something into you to say thank you or put something on, say, Glassdoor, then that's terrific. And clearly that's the biggest compliment you can be paid. But I actually think it needs to be embedded into the processes in your organizations to be always consistently asking clients and candidates for feedback in a variety of ways, whether that's questionnaires, surveys, face-to-face conversations, set questions that you ask or your people ask, and so on. I think it's an important embedded process in your organization's daily activities.
Yeah, I think unsolicited is more difficult, Paul. You're right. You don't often get that, but I think you've just got to keep asking and make sure you understand what the people you provide do for your client. So if you put a team of 3 people into a program that's delivered an excellent educational resource for a school, do you know that? Write it up and ask the client to verify it. Sometimes you've got to do the work because you know what it's like. We get asked to do referrals and things on LinkedIn and we just haven't got the time, or it goes away and you think about it and then it doesn't happen. But actually, if you create something and send it to the client and say, we put a team of contractors onto this project at Ford and it delivered the new wheel arches that you're using on the whatever car it is, that sort of thing. I don't think a lot of our people understand fully what the people they place do. They place them and move on. Yet some of them are working on fantastic work. I've got a client that works with McLaren. The stuff that they're doing for McLaren is beyond fantastic. But they haven't asked McLaren for a reference. And yet, if they get a reference from McLaren, that's just fantastic. The fact that they're based in the Bedfordshire area also means there's a lot of other companies around there, both in engineering and tech, that would be interested. And as long as the client's happy to do it, and most are, it's just the fact that we don't ask them, I would begin to build up a reference bit. Back in the day, you used to go into a company and they used to have references, didn't they? In a big full scat folder with all the references. Now it's on LinkedIn or it's on your own website.
91% of customers will give referrals. Only 11% of salespeople ask for referrals, I think is the answer to that. I think we ask for references and we ask for testimonials, but do we then measure them against our service? And should we be looking at then for, if we've given a good enough service, would we get unsolicited testimonials? And I think when you have excellent service, you tend to give an unsolicited testimonials. So I think to gain this, I think we need to go back to the recruiters that we become complacent. If we never ask our clients and candidates about our services, as you two just highlighted, then we never ever know what our services is good or whether it's bad, and that's complacent on our behalf. So we need to review our consultants based on their client and their candidate feedback, and how do they then create, I suppose, how do they innovate their service levels to a point that they receive glowing references or glowing referrals? Because if you're constantly reviewing your client and then I'm getting reviewed against what my client said against me, I'd be working my damnedest to get a better service level with my client and a better service interaction with my client. But most recruiters just bury their heads in the sand and stop asking about what their service is like, but constantly ask them, can you give me a referral? Can you give me a testimonial? So I think to create new services and retain and attract new clients, if we don't know what they're actually thinking about our service, then how can you build a better service? So I think retention starts and ends with service, and referrals are gained due to our service levels. So building case studies helps you attract new candidates, as what Dave has just been saying. And so to acquire those candidates, references, your service levels, and having case studies back that up. And that's all about creating data. And that's the final bit of your trust triangle, Paul, which is the logic bit that clients need to get from you in order to buy those services. But also it's the logic bit that enables you to retain the services in the clients that you're already supplying and doing that. So final question then. Acquisition and retention are critical to growth. So what steps do you take to continuously improve your service based on your clients' feedback?
So I think one of the things that I'm often doing, and I think you guys are as well, is having biannual team days with our clients, where we spend an entire day strategizing, if that's the word. Sounds a bit cliched, but spending time looking at the performance of the business, coming up with new ideas, how we're going to improve things based upon feedback from clients and candidates, based upon market conditions, based upon the strategies that we think we need to engage in order to keep moving the business forward. Super important, regularly, at least once every 6 months. And I think there's a strong argument to suggest it should be probably quarterly, to review what's going on around you based on the feedback you're receiving, the intelligence you're picking up from market research. And there's plenty of that out there right now. But importantly, as we've been saying throughout this entire webinar, using the feedback we're taking from clients and candidates, from the regular conversations and meetings and surveys that we are gaining from them, to step back for a day, at least every 6 months, and think very hard about, are we moving in the right direction? What are we doing well? What can we take from good to brilliant? Where are we performing poorly? How are we going to address that? And so on and so on. And I think these are very important discussions that can make an enormous difference. Any of the effective executive books will always say that 70% of our time should be spent outside of our business, meaning that we are networking, we are looking at market intelligence, we're talking to customers. Whereas I think most people spend 70% plus of their time looking inward, i.e. inside the business, which is understandable, but it means that you become very myopic and you're unaware really of the opportunities that could be there for you if only you'd spend more time looking outside of the business and talking to people that could have an influence on the profitability and the sustainability of your organization.
Yeah, I think just in summary, I think you've got to make sure that you are constantly learning, knowing what's going on in your market. We've said it before, 6 months is long term, 6 weeks is short term. You need to know what's going on in the next 6 weeks in the market and the next 6 months, and work out if the service that you provide is the service that your clients want. If they want it, do they value it? Do they pay you the right money? And as Paul says, absolutely right, and Heather would agree as well, it is get away from your office and spend some time looking at the services that you provide and the services that the market needs. And can you meet both of those things? And that is best done out of the office. And I would say this would now, but it's best done facilitated by somebody from outside who can bring you some market intelligence and market data, but also it doesn't have the same heart and passion that you would have, and can manage that. And I think it's a great exercise to do. I did one yesterday with a company offsite. It was a great day for everybody.
So I think it starts with everything that you said, but I think to start that process, I think we've got to wake up and smell the coffee. We've got to look at it from a reality point of view and stop believing our own hype and start going out and having the guts to go and ask your clients what they actually think of your service and actually get to the bottom of it. And when you get to that bottom part, then you can start to grow, and then you can start to do the things that you two are talking about. You can start to put strategies in to start to build and grow from there. But unless you know exactly what your clients are thinking, then how do you know which direction to actually move in? So to me, the first thing to create continuous improvement in your service levels is to actually go out and ask your clients what they think. And sometimes using an independent body to go and ask those clients what they think would be a major step, because therefore you might get a more honest answer. Because sometimes clients, because they're not really bothered, because you haven't given them something to be bothered about, will just give you a generic answer. And I think once you change that, where they actually care about you, they will give you an answer that is actually to the point and something that you can then help improve the services to them, which will help improve their retention of staff, their acquisition of staff, and therefore mobilize their, I suppose, staff's mobility to actually deliver the product and service that they're giving to their end clients. But until we know what they say about us, I think everything else falls down. So, retention. There we go. Or acquisition. Next week, we're going to ask a very simple question next week, okay? Recruitment in 2024. Could it be that simple? So we're going to look at what challenges will clients and recruiters face. Clients, are there better ways to engage with clients and their candidate pools? What does the candidate experience start and stop with? And we maybe look at the KISS method, keep it simple, stupid, to conquer our sourcing of candidates, etc. The following week after that, we've got Neil Carberry, and I'm really looking forward to this one, who's going to be talking about the autumn statement. And after the sort of turmoil over the last sort of 6 to 12 months, I think it's going to be a really interesting autumn statement as well. So thank you, everybody. Great session. Paul, Dave, thank you for your
Thank you, everybody.
Everybody have a good week.
Have a good week, and we look forward to seeing you all next week.
Take care.
You still there, Howard? You haven't gone, have you?
I'm still here, Dave.
Hey.
I'm going nowhere.
Pull that curtain back.
The man behind the curtain. Restaurant in Leeds.
See you later.
See you later.